Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Money Goddess podcast. I'm your host, Jasmine Bridges, and I am so excited today to have Lori Lux with us again for part two. So many of you all mentioned how great the episode was, how much you learned from her about abundance, and I thought that it would be fitting to have her come back and just extend on some of the principles and strategies that she shared with us during the first episode. So thank you for coming back, Lori.
Thank you so much for having me. We had an amazing conversation. It's been like 4 or 5 months now. It's crazy, time flies. But yeah, when you said to come back on, I was like, absolutely. I love to talk about femininity, abundance, all the things. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So let's kind of get into it because I've been looking at your content recently, and something that you talked about was shifting from an IG baddie to a wealthy feminine woman. Can you tell us about this process and what made you want to do that? Because a lot of women are like, wait, what do you mean you don't want to be an IG baddie anymore? Like, huh? How does that work? That's what we're supposed to be doing. So, what was that shift like, and how did you get to where you are now with that?
Oh, that's an interesting video actually that I done. So essentially for me, I got to a point where I realized that femininity was who I wanted to be instead of what I wanted to have. And so when I was transitioning into my femininity journey, I started to realize that I wasn't just shifting internally in terms of the way that I saw myself, my self-worth, and my identity and my value. It was also transitioning on the outside, right?
Mhm.
So I started to dress more modestly, more femininely, more classy, more chic compared to before. For those that, if you want to go back on my social media, you see that I was the epitome of IG baddie, okay? Like everything was out on show. And I realized that it's because I didn't have any self worth and I was seeking a lot of male validation. So when people, both men and women would be like, oh my gosh, body T, you look amazing. It would make me feel good, but it was only short term validation. So because it was short term, I was doing it more and more and more and more. And I realized that, okay, men find me attractive and they like me when I look like this. And, women also they're trying to have a body that looks like this and they want to dress like this. So I
Mhm.
kind of like morphed into this IG baddie, right? Even though behind the scenes I was this professional woman who had a 9 to 5 job, I was intelligent, I was knowledgeable, but on social media, I was this IG baddie. Right, because that's what people wanted. So it was more about what people wanted from me and pleasing other people and looking good for other people as opposed to the way that I saw myself. So
Mhm.
when I envisioned the woman that I wanted to become the most feminine, abundant, successful version of myself, and I had a clear vision of who she was, it just wasn't about the things that she had. It's about the way that she carried herself, the grace, the softness, and how she dressed, how she showed up. And I really believe that the way that you show up is a representation of how you're perceived and how you're treated. And the opportunities and doors that opened for me when I was an IG baddie, if you will, compared to now that I'm a more feminine, modest woman, are completely night and day.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to show women that actually you don't have to, less is more.
Mhm.
You don't have to do the most in terms of like showing everything and all of that. Each to their own, but I have found that on the other side, there's much more opportunities and abundance.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for sharing that because in especially Western culture, like it's more almost pushed for women to show up in that way as this IG baddie. And if you don't, it's kind of like you're boring. What are you doing? Right.
Mm.
And I actually had a friend that went to Dubai last year, and she was saying, like, the more women were covered up, the more like they were catered to and given all of these things and opportunities, and people took them more seriously. And she even had kind of like a night and day of like, oh my gosh, I think I need to like, make that shift because I want to be taken care of in that way. I want to be taken seriously, and not just showing, off my body and things of that nature. So I do want to ask too, like, what opportunities did you find, whether it was in your work or relationships, friendships? Like, what happened as a result of that shift? Because I want people to see what can occur when you make those changes.
I think it is just small things and big things. Like as you said, people started taking me seriously. People started to see the value in me. So something as small as more doors being opened, just people just offering to do things for me, strangers, in fact.
Mhm.
The caliber of men that I attracted, okay, because I used to attract a lot of men who were emotionally unavailable, and not really looking for anything serious, non-committal, no emotional intelligence, and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Compared to now, I attract a lot of high quality men, as I like to call them, who are not only financially secure, but are very secure in themselves, and they know what they want, and they're very serious. So that's number one. And
Mhm.
I think in terms of the kind of network, my friendships, the kind of events I will get invited to, for example, the kind of partnerships I have when it comes to brand partnerships, because I'm a content creator as well as a coach. So, it went from getting, fast fashion giftings and, to actually being paid with, reputable big brands.
Wow.
The kind of clients that I attracted in the beginning when I started my coaching, um, I would attract people who would haggle for the price, or would want a cheaper price, or who didn't even want to pay, if you will. Or it's like I had to explain my value and explain why maybe something was priced a certain way. Compared
Mhm.
to now, I attract people who understand the value of what I'm offering them, right? And they don't question the price. The price is the price. I attract high paying clients. And yeah, just having certain doors opened up for me that would have never been opened up for me, really. So I think it's just in all areas of my life. I can't just say it's specifically this, but both professionally, in my business, personally, and just like day-to-day things. Like, no, it just, my life has just become easier as a result.
Mhm.
I like to call myself a dainty flower, and like, it's reflected in how people treat me. um People are much more respectful, are much more generous
Mhm.
and kind, really. And I think I'll move on to, I'll talk about it more in terms of like the halo effect and stuff like that, but just sticking to just the transition of going from an IG baddie to dressing more for the female gaze and dressing more modestly and femininely. That's the brunt of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that you also mentioned that people started to see your value more. And I think it's because you saw your value more, and I also know too, like, you came from your background being an immigrant and transitioning and being in the workforce and all of that. How did you see your value start to increase? Like, and also, what would you say helped you see your value increase to attract that abundance?
Mm, mm. I think I just took it all the way back. okay, I believe that the word of God has all the principles of femininity and wealth.
Mhm.
That if we really took the time to look at that, we have the blueprint to success and abundance. So I took it all the way back when it came to femininity, to biblical femininity. I looked at all the women in the Bible. I looked at, my what I call the feminine principles, like the identity, discernment, surrendering, softness, what's the other one, womanhood. So each woman for me who would represent that. So for discernment, Deborah. For womanhood, sorry, nurturing, it was Sarah, the ultimate mother. For beauty and grace, it's Esther. For discernment, wisdom, Ruth. So all these women, I studied them, and I studied how they were able to attract all the things that they wanted, how they were able to be graceful and be soft, and the lives that they led. um and I realized it wasn't about what I had, because previously I saw my value as, I have these many degrees, I've had these job titles, I
Mhm.
own this and I own that and I have that. I used to keep up with the Joneses a lot, to say, okay, I need to get this next luxury bag, I need to go on this next vacation, just to show people that I have money, and to show people that I got it like that, and I'm, and all that kind of stuff. I realized that my identity wasn't based on what I had, but on who I was. And by really embodying those feminine principles, I became to create my own identity. I became more self I created more self worth, because it's something that I really, really lacked. And I didn't even realize that I lacked self worth, that I didn't have any self belief. I had fake confidence. So if you knew me previously, you'd have been like, well, what are you talking about? You've always been confident. But, I learned how to be adaptable. As an only child, you learn. I'm an only child. So as an only child, I grow up being adaptable. I can get on with anyone, basically,
Mhm.
because I didn't grow up with any siblings. So I could really adapt. So I had fake confidence, but I wasn't confident in myself. I didn't have any understanding of who I really was. I just molded myself according to who was around me, according to what other people wanted me to be. And I became to understand that I actually know I have my own identity, and this is who I am, and this is also who I want to be. And I stopped introducing myself with, yes, I do this, I'm a content creator, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a that. I wanted people to get to know me, who I was as a person at the core. Yeah, so I worked on, without boring you, my core beliefs, my attachment style, my self-worth. And those three things are what really embodied my feminine identity and encompassed the feminine principles as well.
I love that. So, and that's where I think you and I have like a lot of similarities. Is like with self-worth, like I always felt like I had to look at those external things as like the validation, especially because I grew up in poverty. That was just like, oh, I have to show like I made my way through. This is who I am now. But then it's like that emptiness, because what
Mm,
happens when one thing goes wrong, right? Like what happens if God has a different plan? My identity was attached to the wrong things, and that kicks your self-worth when your identity is on things that alter and that change, because you don't know where life will take you. And so I love that you brought that out, that you found your identity in who you wanted to be, and then it reflected outward.
mhm,
Yeah.
absolutely. I remember I had one of my first therapy sessions, and my therapist actually asked me, who are you outside of your job? And I just could not answer that question. And I completely broke down, because
Mhm.
I didn't know who I was. Even when my mom passed away, I went straight back to work, because that's all I knew. That's who I was. So when I ended up, you know, handing in my resignation during maternity,
Mhm.
and that's when I was like, oh my goodness, who am I? What I was so lost, So that's when, because that's when everything started going wrong. My mom passed away, I got pregnant, I became a single mom.
Mm.
I had to hand in my resignation. It was like all the things that were me, so I've always known myself to be in a relationship. So who am I outside of a relationship? Who am I outside of a job? So I had to really go on a self-discovery journey of getting to know who I was and then becoming who I wanted to be.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of us have that, but as you mentioned, we don't recognize it
Mm,
until things hit the fan and then we're like, oh my gosh, I was just so gung-ho on these certain aspects of myself. And I didn't realize like there's more to life. There's so
yeah,
much more than just these certain things, and we just have to be able to accept that who we are is the core of everything. So I want to dig into something else about pretty privilege. When people hear that, sometimes they're like, oh my gosh, here we go. But what is pretty privilege? How can we use it? What should we do? Because it obviously works.
absolutely, absolutely. Pretty privilege is just an unfair advantage, right? A lot of people have unfair advantages. Some people are born in wealthy families. There's male privilege, men sometimes have an upper hand in certain situations. There's female privilege, sometimes women, we have upper hands in certain situations. There's white privilege. So sometimes there's even sexual orientation privilege. So it's just an unfair advantage, something that you just have that you either can control or can't control, and just being able to tap into that, because I believe that every woman has two privileges, a female privilege and pretty privilege, right? And beauty is a choice, right? Some people are born just naturally beautiful, but they still have to maintain that beauty. They still have to do things to in order to show up in a certain way. And then some people maybe conventionally aren't perceived as being beautiful. Again, you make a choice to how you want to show up in the world, because it impacts how people see you and how people treat you. So something called the halo effect, as I mentioned before, where studies were done previously that attractive people always seem to have like an unfair advantage, and that's because there's positive attributes that are associated with them, like being intelligent, being put together, being organized, and just being reliable and all that kind of things. So for job interviews, sometimes you see that somebody who might be deemed as attractive is more likely to get the job as
Mhm.
somebody who isn't, right? So the way that you present yourself and the way that you show up matters. It impacts how people see you, perceive you, and treat you. It can either open doors for you or close doors for you.
Mhm.
So it's a choice that you have to make, and we need to remove the ethics, I think, that sometimes people put in there, that I used to put in there, to be like, I'm so much more than my looks. And I think when I was going through my self-discovery journey, when I was trying to move away from being the IG baddie, I kind of went all the way to the other end, where I was like, okay, I want to
Mhm.
show people that I'm intelligent, that I'm funny, that I'm experienced. So even when I used to, do my videos, for example, it used to be more just really psychology led. Like the clip I still do in coaching, but I felt like if I focus on that, but that wasn't, even though that gave me credibility, it didn't give me relatability. So just because you come across as an educator, it doesn't mean that somebody's going to want to work with you, right? But when people um, look at you and think, oh my goodness, she's so beautiful. Oh, who is she? People start to get curious about who you are and your lifestyle and what you're talking about. And also, there needs to be congruence with what you're talking about and the way that you look, right? Again, it's just a halo effect. People are going to believe you more when you present yourself in a higher standard than if you don't. We could both be saying the same things, but if somebody looks better and presents themselves in a higher standard, people will draw to them more. It's like I give the example of when you're scrolling on social media. Sometimes you just stop. You just see a beautiful woman and you see her gorgeous hair, her makeup, or even her outfit. So you don't
Yeah.
even know what her content's about, but that's the first thing that draws you to them. So I see beauty as access, right? It opens
Mhm.
doors, and then once you're in, now you can articulate your expertise and knowledge. Now that you have people's attention, it's just a way of getting people's attention. I say, beauty for women is what money is for men. I think Marilyn Monroe used to say something similar, but in a different way. Um, so yeah, because money provides men with access. Money makes men attractive. It gives them social standing.
Mhm.
So does beauty. So the more we stop running away from um, actually maximizing and leaning into our beauty, the more we remove the ethics and the guilt that comes with it and see it for what it is, an unfair advantage. I think certain terms like privilege have like a connotation and can make some people think that you've got this thing and you don't deserve it. No, that's not what it
Mhm.
means. It just means that I have just got it. Um, you know, because it's on at the fact that they have an unfair advantage. And I'm more than happy to say that, most of my opportunities have been because of my unfair advantage. And I want to show women that actually this is part of femininity. It is in the Bible.
Mhm.
You are not sinning. You are not doing anything untoward. You are not arrogant by actually stating the fact that you are. I'm not saying people should go around saying I'm beautiful. People can see a beautiful woman. People can see beauty and grace and class and elegance. They can see it, and psychologically, they will treat you accordingly.
Absolutely. That is so true. And I actually kind of learned pretty privilege when I was in high school because that was always the thing like, oh my gosh, you're so pretty. Oh my gosh, you're so pretty. And that always led to a conversation of, oh, well, I
Mm,
need someone to model or I need it can you host something for me? And it just kind of traveled more and more. So I really do see that difference. And I also believe that pretty privilege is something that we all can use, especially as women. We just have to find our way in which we use it, whether it is styling ourselves, the way that fits our bodies and our aesthetics. And I mean, I even see this in my marketing. So when I'm marketing to a certain audience or I'm branding, I literally think about, okay, what would make people stop in their tracks? Being pretty, having that aesthetic,
absolutely.
bringing those things to the forefront. And that's exactly what you're saying. And I don't think that people consider that, but it really does make a difference and we need to use it.
Hmm. Absolutely. I think, like I said, everyone has an unfair advantage, and when you understand what your unique beauty is, as I like to call it, right, and you not only lean into that, but you maximize it. Because I see a lot of beautiful women on social media, and I'm like, I feel like they could be so much more than
Yeah.
maybe what they are because they're not actually leaning into what they already have. And like what you said, it's really all about especially as female business owners, about really branding.
Mhm.
That is something that we have to our advantage to utilize and to make us stand out because there's so many content creators, so many people online, especially as an online business owner. So it's, one of the things that you can use to stand out. Oh,
Yes, yes. You can hear me?
sorry.
Oh no, you're perfect. Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to ask you, as far as feminine abundance, how do we cultivate feminine abundance? What's the difference, I would say, between that masculine and then how do we attract like more feminine abundance to us?
Yeah, feminine abundance is something that I kind of put together and I created because I believe that femininity and an abundance mindset are closely linked.
Mhm.
Where you believe that you can attract anything that you desire because it is your birthright, right?
Mhm.
And that you are deserving of everything because I believe that the feminine principles, like the ones that I spoke about, are also can be put into an abundance, money mindset, and all that kind of stuff, right? So all you have to do is just to mesh the two. So the same way of your identity as a feminine woman, what is your identity as a wealthy woman? What does that look like?
Mhm.
So it's just literally meshing the two. And when we think about how to actually attain that, I use like my 5 principles. The first being biblical femininity, which I spoke to you about before, and then the other one is your appearance, which is the pretty privilege, and then the third thing is becoming the source of income, and then the fourth thing is the abundance mindset, and then the fifth thing is soft productivity. So when you are able to master all these principles, that's how you can tap into feminine abundance. Because I believe a lot of women are using a male handbook to go through life. I don't know if you've noticed that a lot of productivity books are written by men, like
Mhm.
Atomic Habits, The 12-Week Year, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So it means that we are going through life in a masculine world, in a masculine structure, using male tips, which, as we know, we are not the same as men, which is why we go through cycles of toxic productivity where we start, when we stop, we procrastinate. And, some people end up in the same place year after year because we're trying to do things as men.
Mhm.
But if we start use feminine abundance is essentially a female handbook of how to go through life basically and how to attract abundance because women we don't chase, we attract, right? So
Ah.
the masculine way of doing things is like working hard, hustling, grinding, the critical thinking strategy and all that kind of stuff. And there is elements of that we need to balance both masculine and feminine energy, but we need to be leaning more into our femininity because that is our natural state. And I believe when we do that, that's when we attract abundance. So um yeah, I don't know if you have any more questions about that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I definitely can relate to that because I even still today, because society for the past, I would say 100+ years, it has all been masculine, patriarchy, productivity. If we don't get this done, this is going to happen. And unfortunately, like I am still recovering from this. And
Mm-hmm.
being in your femininity really allows you to sit back and you can see where that toxicity starts to like leak over. And even when
Mm-hmm.
this interview, I knew I said, okay, like, because I try to cycle sync. And so I was like, you know what? I know I'm going to be a little bit more like high energy within a certain amount of days. And that's what I need
Mm-hmm.
my interviews. And then on the other side of that, I need to honor when my energy is not as high. That doesn't mean I don't
Mm-hmm.
show up. That doesn't mean that I don't
Mm-hmm.
do what I'm supposed to do because some people will take that as, oh, well, I'm done. I'm not doing anything. But
Mm-hmm.
just understanding like there's a time and a place for everything. And
Yeah.
Men have a 1 day, 24-hour cycle. So that's why they're always able to go, go, go. And another thing that they also put in those productivity books is you can only focus on one thing, one thing. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that. But as a feminine woman, we were made to juggle. It just
Mm,
happens. That doesn't mean that we try to take on too much that we can't handle
no.
it, but
Mm,
it's like we are meant to be this Renaissance woman. It is in our
mm,
DNA. Like that's what women do. And I just, on a personal level, I would like for us to one day become more acceptable, right? Because all these things that we're talking about with femininity are almost new to this generation, right? It's not new because it's been around, but because of the patriarchal shifts, it's not as acceptable. And I guess
mhm.
my next question is like, how do we become comfortable with being feminine and not feeling so bad when we're not this masculine dominant, being? How do we get comfortable, I guess?
Mm, mm. I think it's definitely a journey. I think femininity is, yeah, it's a journey, but it's a beautiful one, as I like to call it. I believe that you can still command a room while still being soft. And I never used to understand that. I used to think that being a leader, being respected, I had to kind of mimic masculinity, which is why I was heavily in my masculine energy, right? But there is such a thing as feminine leadership. I think when you actually understand that there is power in femininity, where you actually start to see the results of your feminine power, it will make you more and more comfortable. So I think it would be one, starting your journey, and two, continuing on your journey, and like being reflecting and not being too over resilient, to be like, I just got to keep on going, got to keep on going. No, let's actually pause and think about what's happening, um, what's going well, what's not going well. And when you start to see a result, when I started to see that I'm actually becoming more successful as a feminine woman than I was when I was leading in my masculinity,
Mm,
I started to lean more into it because I was like, okay, this actually works. Like what you said, we weren't built just to focus on one thing. For example, like the Proverbs 31 woman, she was a wife, she was a mother, and she was a businesswoman, but she did it so gracefully because she was walking in her purpose, walking in her servitude, as I like to call it. So I think if you are taking the aligned action on becoming the woman that you want to be, on creating the life of your dreams, if you are obedient and doing what God has called you to do and walking in your purpose, um, you will inevitably attract the abundance. And then once you do, it's like evidence based. We work on evidence sometimes, even though we need to be walking more in faith, like Delulu faith, but we need that reinforcement to keep us going, to give us the evidence that actually this way of doing things actually works. But you have to be intentional and you have to be devoted to that journey and to that process. So I think that's the way that I would say to really just be comfortable in it. Just be comfortable in who you want to be.
yeah.
Stop waiting to be her and just be her. Sit in her identity, embody that identity.
hmm And I guess too, to add on to that, I would love to know, what does success look like for a feminine woman, right? As opposed to being in this masculine state. Of course, everyone has their own definition, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what would you um encourage success to look like? I heard you talk about purpose and alignment. Are there some things that you might recommend? Because I know for me, I've had to do that so many times when I look at what success is. So in the past, I would look at it as, oh, money, or oh, I was able to accomplish this thing or this degree or whatever. Like, what is success for that feminine woman?
Mm. I think the first thing is fulfillment.
Mm,
Success looks like fulfillment. And I think you can only be fulfilled if you are walking in your servitude, right? The reason why sometimes people feel dissatisfied in careers or even businesses that they have, especially if it's not going well. You know, you could have a business and maybe you're not even making any money and you're struggling and you're not fulfilled because maybe that is not your purpose. Maybe that specific thing is not your servitude, you know? So I would say success for me looks like fulfillment. Success for me looks like alignment when I am working towards, when I'm taking the action, you know, actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Instead of just waiting until a lot of people think that once I have this and once this happens, but for me, because I know for a fact that all my dreams are going to manifest and come into reality, you know, everything that I'm doing on that journey is exciting for me. I wake up every single day excited to, I don't even need an alarm. You know, my body just wakes me up like it's time to go. We're doing this today. Whether I'm doing something as small as filming a TikTok, or whether I'm talking to someone on a session, or whether I'm going to an industry event, or whether I'm I don't know, going to a speaking engagement, whatever that I'm doing, I am just so happy. I know that small thing, like filming a TikTok, is going to get me where I want to be.
mm,
Um, I would say success is also the feeling that we're seeking because most times when people say, oh, I can't wait to be the woman of my dreams or to live the life of my dreams, it's not the big house that they're talking about. It's not the car, it's not the money, it's not the holidays, it's the feeling that they're seeking, the feeling of freedom, peace. So for me, that's what success. And I feel like once you're able again to embody that feeling, you can actually be successful without acquiring the things that you need, that you feel like you need in order for you to be successful. So all these things that I've said about what success um, is for me something that's attainable now without you actually achieving the tangible things
yeah.
because it's feelings. I think as women also we're emotional beings, and instead of seeing that as a negative, actually tapping into it, right? Because that is the secret to being able to embody, right? Once you visualize and then you're in that vision, you're sitting in that vision, you are feeling the emotions and feelings of that vision. That is the secret of embodiment. So now you then transfer those emotions and feelings to
Mhm.
your current identity, which makes it easier again to walk in alignment, to be fulfilled. It's like a little puzzle that works together once you understand really how to work it.
Yes, thank you so much for like providing insight on that because I believe a lot of people are so, especially women. I love that you said we are feeling beings, right? So when we get online, because this is, I feel like when I first started my like online business and just business in general, it was always about I made, $1 million in 3 days, or, it's always this number chasing. And what I learned from number chasing is that it is not fulfilling. It's not because you can make the money. That's to me, that's the easy part. It's really about feeling good about what you're doing as opposed to just trying to hit a certain goal. That to me, that's very masculine. And the more that I get into my feelings and knowing that what I'm doing is making a difference in someone's life and that I'm in my purpose and my calling, it makes the journey easier, especially for
Mm.
feminine women. Would you say the same?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why I don't know if anyone has ever noticed. I have never once said, I make this amount of money, I make six figures or I make seven figures. I have never said that because that for me is being results driven, as it's being goal driven. But I don't set goals, I set intentions. I heard someone who said people underestimate what they can do in a year. Sorry, people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. I don't put time restraints on myself to say, I need to make this amount of money and I need to have this and I have to need to do that. I used to, and I used to even say in my videos. I think I even have a video when I said this is how I'm going to be making 10K months, and I have a video when I said this is how I plan to get 100K subscribers, or this is how I plan to get 50K subscribers. The minute that I let go of specific goals
Yeah.
and time frames in terms of when they're going to happen, is the moment that I went in a state of ease and flow, the moment that I started flowing instead of forcing, and the
Yeah.
moment things just became easier. Like when people ask me, how have you been, if you were for me to ask you the exact strategy besides all my principles, I don't know, because I have attracted everything. I believe that um, just letting go, surrendering, taking aligned action, and also reflecting on the way is the best thing that you can do as a woman whilst you're walking in your servitude.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I love that you just took the time to explain that because I think a lot of people are looking for that one strategy as opposed to understanding it is a rhythm. It's a flowing, it's a pattern. And even myself, like I am analyzing my life, like what is actually flowing and what is not. And do I need to be doing what isn't flowing? Am I trying to force something? And I think force shows up in our lives more, especially if you are like a, high achieving woman. It's very easy to
Mm-hmm,
see that
mm-hmm.
force kind of come up. But in that same breath, I want to ask, what about those women who want to either get in business or they want like a certain career and they have bills to pay, right? Because that's my audience. They're thinking, like, I hear you saying flow, I hear you saying let go, but what about, this amount of money that I need to make every single month, or I can't have the things that I need? What would you say to that?
I would say two things. First of all, we need to remove the term side hustle, right? I would say if you're in a full time job, stay in your full time job that is your main source of income whilst you are becoming the source of income, right? There's one thing, walking in faith, and there's also one thing being stupid. We're not in the business of being stupid, right? But don't create a side hustle. Why do I say that? I say that because hustle has the connotation of forcing, of grinding, of pushing, right? So that's going to translate to early mornings, late nights, making sacrifices, no social life, right? Because you're like, I just gotta hustle, 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 hustle. I just gotta
Yeah.
put in the work, right? And it's not going to be something that you enjoy. It's not going to be something that you're looking forward to doing. So that's where that procrastination might come in. And starting and stopping because it's like it's not your main source of income. Again, side has the connotation of something that you do on the side. You have one leg in, one leg out at the same
Mhm.
time. So because you have your main source of income. So side then gives you permission to procrastinate. It gives you permission to not be risk averse. It gives you permission to be goal and results driven. It gives you permission to have short-term gratification, right? I believe as women, you need to have a feminine business from the jump, whether you're starting off or whether you're already 10 years in, right? Even if you have a full-time job, even if this is something that you're doing completely full-time, because that sets the tone on how you see it. So if it's a feminine business, that ease and flow is going to be involved in how you tackle business. And then the business also shows you the seriousness of it. You know, this is not a hobby. This is not a joke. This is something that I hold seriously, that I value. So you're going to actually put in the work that you need to. So, but there is that balance. So, what are we doing here? We're balancing our feminine and masculine energy within the business. The second thing that I would say for that woman, actually, I'm going to say three things, if you'll allow me.
Oh,
The second thing that I'm going to say about this woman is, as women, we're already two steps ahead, right? Women make the best content creators, the best business owners, and the best leaders because women were created to serve. The
mm,
Bible says, the greatest among you shall be your servant, right? And as women, we are maternal, we are nurturing. So that means we already have the skills to problem solve, to support, to serve, to help, to guide, to uplift. We already do it with our families, with our husbands, with our partners, with our children, at work, with our families, with our friends. We're already pouring, we're constantly pouring into others. So when we then pull that feminine energy into our business, into our dream, into our goal, we now understand that the sentiment of business or of anything is understanding people's problems. So once you understand what someone's problem is, what someone's challenge is, heck, what's keeping somebody up at night?
yeah,
Women, we are so good at doing that anyway. That is the secret to a thriving successful business. Business is not for you. So when you go into business thinking I want to make money, I want to make 10K, you've already failed. You
that's
go
right.
into business and to think, who can I help? Whether you're a hairdresser, you're helping a woman feel fabulous. Whether you're a coach, you're providing somebody with a transformation. Whether you are working, you've got a fashion brand. Again, you're giving somebody confidence. You're making somebody look fabulous. Whether you work in the cosmetics, you are doing the same. Whatever business or feminine business that you have, think about the woman, the man, the child. What is the problem? What is the challenge? Use your divine femininity of nurturing, of being maternal to pour into people, to pour into your service, your customers, your clients,
Mhm.
right? So that's number one. That's number two. Number three is the beauty privilege, the pretty privilege. Like I said, as women, you're already two steps ahead. Think
Yeah,
about the way that you're showing up. Think about your branding. Think about how you want people to what you want people to feel when they look at you, when they hear from you, what you want people to think about you. Branding is essentially what people say about you when you're not in the room,
hmm,
right? And yeah, so maximize that even as a business. You know, if you think about all the successful businesses, they have excellent branding. So even as a small business, that's something that actually you need to be thinking about. But that also comes from understanding who you're serving and what their problem is and being able to speak to them directly. So that's where you attract, the difference between, again, a feminine business and a masculine business. A masculine business will be knocking on people's doors, cold calling and proving and what buy, 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 like on TikTok shop, where they're like buy, 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 buy. Whereas a feminine business, you're attracting. you speak to somebody, you speak to somebody's problem, you speak to somebody's challenge, not about what you think their problem is or what their challenge is, or what you think that they should have, what they think their problem is, and they come to you. They knock on your door. They beg you to help them. Now you're going to need waiting lists to be working with people because you have so many people coming on your door. So I think, and also walking in your servitude, and understanding what your purpose is, because purpose looks differently for everyone. And I think sometimes some people confuse passion with purpose. Some people confuse I want to make money with my purpose. Some people confuse I don't want to work for anyone for purpose. you know um Purpose is something that you're not only good at, something that you're passionate about, something that you love, something that comes naturally and easy to you, something that people pay for and that the world needs. That is your purpose. So when you're able to tackle all of that,
Mhm.
right, that is your purpose. So I think that's four things, isn't it? That's four things that I've said.
I didn't
Yeah.
count. It was just so good. I was just listening.
Yeah.
I love all of this. And in summation, one word that I kept hearing is service.
Mm,
Service, service, service. And I think from a masculine business that we don't always think about that service. We're just driven by the operational standpoint, by the bottom line, and that takes the joy and fun out of it. And it leads to burnout. And I think
mm.
that's also why some women are afraid to either restart their businesses if they have had that issue before, or just start them in general because they're already burnt out and they're not able to really enjoy what they're doing, and also understanding that purpose shift. And I love the fact that you mentioned all of those things that are within purpose so that we know, okay, this is what is working and what isn't working, and we need to make those changes so that we can actually be in alignment. And I think that's where you'll start to see those results, as opposed to the other way around. Because this transformation from masculine to feminine in business is not easy.
It's
So
not. It takes a lot of work. Yes,
it
you're right.
does. And Lorraine, if you don't mind, would you share what coaching services that you have, or products or anything that people can get in on to, just get inside of your brand and what you're doing and how much you are helping and transforming people's lives?
Of course, I'm actually opening up doors to my Feminine Abundance mentorship, which is a 3 to 6 month mentoring package for high achieving women who want to step into their feminine identity and attract their God given abundance. So, we'll be going through all the principles that we were talking about today of biblical femininity, appearance, abundance mindset, and soft productivity, and how that applies in your life, your goals, and your business. And we'll have weekly sessions for those 3 to 6 months. And I'm also going to be putting out a workbook, a femininity workbook for those people who maybe are not at the point of wanting to have that mentorship, but they would want sort of support anyway, where they can work on these principles themselves. So this should be coming out in a couple of weeks, but the doors to my mentorship are open. Just go to my website, www.lorriluxe, LORRILUXXE.com, and go to the mentorship, go to the services, and mentorship is there, or just go, or any of my link trees on my social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I'm Lorri Luxe everywhere. And yeah, reach out to me there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for just doing this interview and pouring your heart out to all of the listeners because I know, and I even walked away with some great tips and I feel refreshed and
I
revitalized
love that.
business owner. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me again.
Of course.